Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Expensive Concept in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My ex-husband who cheated on me with my sister emailed me after 6 years. I met my ex-husband Dan almost 15 years ago at a restaurant when I was celebrating my 18th birthday. He was really nice, charming, and mature. He made me feel loved and special. For some context, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My mom and dad used to always fight. My dad would sometimes go out and not come back for months. He died when my sister Abby was born. My mom was way too fond of Abby since her birth, rather than me. Abby was basically babied by my mother. She didn't neglect me at all. She always did her best as a mother and provided for me, but I always felt something missing. After Dan came into my life, I didn't feel like there was something missing from me. He supported me. He was caring. He would always buy me gifts and take me out on long drives. I felt complete when I was with him. We got married after dating for 4 years. I wanted to start a family right away, but Dan encouraged me to do my master's and help me build my career. He wanted us to be in a stable financial position before we started thinking about having kids. Seriously, he was the best guy I could ever ask for. After 5 years of being happily married, I discovered that my husband was cheating on me with Abby. I discovered the affair when my husband made an excuse that he would go out of town for a week, but he stayed in town and booked a hotel room where he and Abby could have sex. This had been going on for 6 months behind my back. I was really devastated. Abby and I were close growing up. I loved her and cared for her. How could she do this to me? After the D-Day, Dan and I had a fight. I asked how he could do this to me, especially with my sister who had just turned 19. He said he didn't love me anymore, that I didn't give him enough attention, and that I was not the same girl he fell in love with. In the midst of this mess, I discovered that I was pregnant, but due to the stress, I lost the baby. He didn't even care enough to visit me at the hospital when I lost our child. He was having a weekend getaway with my sister. I should have seen the signs. Abby would always be touchy with Dan, and Dan would sometimes stare at her, but it is still very disturbing for me. My mother, as usual, took Abby's side and told me to just make peace with it. I wanted to kill myself because I had no one left. Lost my child, my husband, my whole family. Then my best friend Tina came to my rescue. She was moving to another state and asked me to come with her. I said yes. I was already divorced at that point, and we lived in a small town, so I would obviously run into my ex and my sister. It took me a while to settle into my new life in a different state, but I met some kind people there. It helped me heal some trauma. I still have trust issues. I met my now husband Tony after 1 year of moving to the new place. I was really hesitant and kept my guard up, but he showed me that he is trustworthy and loves me a lot. I was so happy with him that I almost forgot about the life I had back in my hometown. His parents were really welcoming and generous people. We got married a year ago and I am now pregnant with our first child. Yesterday, I got an email from my ex Dan. It just brought back all the bad memories. I'm just paraphrasing his email. He mentioned that he misses me, that he tried to find me but couldn't, and that he is very miserable with my sister. She is very dumb and doesn't care about him like I do. I used to bake him a cake and throw birthdays for him, but Abby only texted him happy birthday and didn't even bother to buy him a cake. Plus, she is very rude. She doesn't respect him and is always at the bar with her friends. He also mentioned that she has cheated on him 5 times already. The last affair was with his cousin. Our mother also doesn't stop her from doing this. He will soon file for divorce, but lately has been missing me a lot. He wants us to try again as a couple and become a family just like before. Since I do not have social media except for Instagram, which is private, he probably doesn't know that I am married and have a baby on the way. I don't know if I should feel pity for him or just laugh because the grass on his side is very brown rather than green. Update. I just wanted to say thanks to all of you who messaged me and showed your support. I have decided to send him an email and be done with it. It goes like this. Dan, I am sorry to hear that you are suffering, but there is no way I would be with you. Yes, there was a time when I used to be that girl who would have taken you in a heartbeat, but that girl is not there anymore. That girl died the day I had a miscarriage and you were somewhere shacking up with my sister. I called you, but you never picked up. I am married to a wonderful man who loves and cherishes me, and I am pregnant with our first child. I am beginning this new chapter of my life with someone I love and care for deeply. So please do not contact me ever again. You made your choice. You chose my barely legal sister over me. I do not care if she cheats on you or if she doesn't respect you. Someone like you doesn't deserve loyalty and respect anyway. I have left my old life in my old town, and it will be best for you to move on and do some self-reflection. You are just a deeply insecure man who is getting old and thought having a young woman would be good by your side. Goodbye. Update 2. A lot of you have been asking me what he replied. Well, he replied within an hour of me emailing him. He said that he was stupid enough to believe that I would still wait for him and that he would always wait for me because no matter what, I will always be his baby doll. I cringed hard. He used to call me that, but now it feels repulsive. I also got an email from my mom and my sister. My mom just congratulated me and was excited that she is going to be a grandmother, and my sister did the same and said she will be the cool aunt. I cannot believe these people. They forgot how they treated me when I needed them and moreover betrayed me. I cried for a long time because I've been reading your comments and it seems like my sister and I were groomed by that man. I feel so stupid. I know I shouldn't be mad at my sister, but she was old enough to know it's wrong to have an affair with a married man, especially someone who is your sister's husband. I blocked all of them. I am 5 months pregnant already. I don't need more stress. God bless my husband. He comforted me when I cried and later took me out for ice cream. I hope I can move past this. Update 3. I am cooled down now. I think I can make a more elaborate update. Thanks to everyone who has shown me support. I needed it. The email from him just struck me like a train. I had flashbacks of everything he has done to me. I think you guys deserve a detailed update. After I sent him the reply mail, he emailed me within an hour with the thing I said in my update 2 part. A few hours later, I get 2 other emails from my mom and sister. They sent them to my old email address that I hardly use now. I don't know how they knew about my pregnancy. I try to keep a low profile. I still haven't posted my baby bump pics on social media or made any announcements. I only have Instagram to follow my friends, but it just scared me, and I broke down crying on the spot. Luckily, my husband Tony was around. He held me and put me on the couch. He knows everything about me. I never hid anything from him. I was a little bit scared that my mom and sister would find me. He reassured me that I am hundreds of miles away from them. I mean, we are on the opposite part of the country. He took me out for ice cream to comfort me. It took 2 ice cream cones to finally calm me down. I told him about my concerns and that my mom and sister might demand to see my baby, and he told me he would talk to his uncle, who is a police officer, to be on the lookout for them. Even if they come here and force themselves on you, he would fight for it. He is going to consult his lawyer friend about this matter and told me not to worry about my ex. He cannot harm me anymore. My husband even made a joke that he would move countries if he had to. Lastly, someone in my post commented that I should alert the daycare about my mom and sister in case they try to steal my baby. Well, we aren't planning to put her in daycare. Even though I am currently working, I decided I would quit my job and look after my baby and focus on healing from giving birth. I do have a good amount of savings in my personal bank, and this is my own decision. I will go back to work when our little princess is a little bit older. My in-laws are amazing. My mother-in-law and father-in-law live nearby. They are both good people and offered to help with my child. Also, don't worry, apart from my in-laws, I have a good support system too. Tina and her wife Jenny basically adopted me. They are really good people and always help me. I don't know what will happen in the future, but at least I am surrounded by some good people that I never had growing up. Now, I will take my leave and enjoy my husband pampering me. If something big happens, I will keep you guys updated, and my ex, sister, and mother are all blocked. User Strange Providence said, honestly, I'm surprised her ex tried to reconnect instead of visiting the local high school to try and pick up another 18-year-old. What a sleazeball. To this user father's son, Holy Toast, said, now that he's 40, he may have aged out of being able to successfully creep on kids. A naive 18-year-old may be willing to fall for lines from a guy in his early 30s about how special and mature she is for her age, especially if he's handsome, but past 40, it's a lot harder for him to pull off the cool older guy gambit. To most teenage girls, he'll just read like a dorky peer of her dad. User Big Lips Magoo said, I had a very similar situation in my own life. An email a few months after I got remarried and everything. So similar, except I didn't lose my baby. We moved about 600 miles away too. I just didn't respond to the email. I didn't say a word back. It's been about 8 years since that email, and the sheer joy I get whenever I think about it floats my petty balloon until I think about it again. It was 100% the right move to not even respond. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I'm still married and very happy. He adopted my kids, including the baby I didn't lose. We had 2 more and adopted 1. Now we have 6 kids and a crazy but extremely fulfilling and loving life. He can't find us even if he wanted to. I don't even check check that email address anymore, so if he sent anything else, it also went unanswered. And that baby he abandoned will be 14 next month. She's so incredibly beautiful. She's funny, smart, plays the drums, and skateboards. She has the most beautiful, thick ringlet curls in her hair and eyes so dark they verge on black. She has the most perfect dimples in each cheek. She's truly a beauty, but her personality shines even brighter. She calls me her best friend and looks so much like my husband that people think she's biologically his. I definitely won in my situation. I hope the original poster ends up winning in hers too. Fly high, petty balloon, fly high. This next post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Cutoff Family about a year ago. The post is titled AITA for forcing my fiance into cutting off his late wife's family. I'm getting married to my fiance in May. When we first got together, he told me that he was married from 20 to 22 years old to his high school sweetheart, but she passed away from sepsis after a botched surgery. He didn't cope well and stayed in contact with her family, namely her father and two sisters, 19 and 24. It was a soft spot for me for a while at the beginning because there was so much history they had that we would not have, and it was tough knowing that she was all around him. I never told him and decided to work through it on my own, especially with the fact that he would often spend time with her family during our relationship. On her birthday, their anniversary, and the anniversary of her death, he'd spend the day with her family. It was uncomfortable at first knowing the man I loved was reminiscing about love he had with someone else. But I kept trying to see it from his perspective, and in the last couple of years, I am completely secure in our relationship, and it doesn't bother me much anymore. Well, he proposed this time last year, and I was over the moon. I love this man with all my heart, but I recently learned that he never told them that we got engaged. I've been trying local coffee shops the past few months rather than my usual run and tried a new one. His late wife's sister worked there, and other than being awkward, she did a double take of my engagement ring and looked really unhappy. I didn't mention it and left. My fiance told me that she kept messaging him on social media about it, and I wasn't happy that he kept it a secret. He apologized and was very depleted by it all. He said that he didn't want to hide me, but he didn't want to hurt them either, and that both of us were a huge part of his life. I understood that and let him off the hook slightly, just telling him to be upfront with them from now on. That was that. At least I thought so. A week ago, on Sunday, I got a message from the 24-year-old asking if I was happy with myself, that I would never replace his late wife, and that if she were still alive, he'd choose her over me every time. She even said that he only kept me around for my money and something to stick his dick in. I ignored it, but I can't say that it didn't affect me. When you're in my position, all these points are ones you have to work through, and it's not easy to get over those insecurities. It feels like a knock in the teeth when they're used against you. I mentioned it to him, and he comforted me and reassured me. He said he'd set boundaries with her, and I'd never have to hear from her again. Fine by me. That was until I found my car with whore and grave robber smeared in red paint. I had saved for this car for a year and it was expensive, very expensive. The tires were slashed and the windows cracked. I asked the store a few doors down for their CCTV camera footage of that night, but it was blurry and didn't catch much. It did manage to catch half a license plate though, and the color and make of a car. It was his late wife's youngest sister's car. I told him I was filing a police report, and he asked me to hold off until he talked to them first. I told him no, but I would if they paid for the damages and apologized to my face. He set up the meeting for last night, and it didn't go well to say the least. Everyone was shouting. The sisters told me yes, both of them, had nothing to be sorry for and that I should leave their family alone, including my fiance, who they considered part of their family. He told them that it wasn't fair to him to be lonely forever and that he'd hoped they'd be supportive of him finding love again. They told him he was betraying his late wife and that he never loved her if he'd marry someone else. They didn't have a problem with him having a new girlfriend because he'd realize she was the only one for him and get tired of me. Now that hadn't happened, they were putting their foot down. The youngest told him to tell me that they were right and that he'd never love anyone like his late wife. My fiance broke down at the table. I picked him up and made us leave. I told them I'd be filing a report and suing for damages, and the next time they saw us would be in court. When we got back and calmed down, I gave him an ultimatum. Either he cuts contact or we call off the wedding and go our separate ways. I wasn't going to live my life with this harassment and someday subject my children to their bullying. He said they would never bully a child, but I shot him down and said he didn't expect any of this either. He called their father, who was fairly chill about it all but still defending his daughters. They say I shouldn't control him and that I'm horrible for cutting them off. I don't know what to do. I can't live like this, and I don't think I should have to just because we're getting married. User Caspian said, "You are not the asshole. What they did is completely unacceptable, and I'm glad you're standing your ground and filing the police report. Look into a restraining order as well, since you must still have all the proof of the messages and such. As for your fiance, I understand why he kept in touch with them, but he messed up big time by not telling them he's moved on and loves someone else. He's hidden you from them, which is stupid, as what did he expect? He needs to grow a backbone and put them in their place." To this user Hot Rod, Homebody said, "I just can't get past the fact that they think he should be single forever, and 3 years after their sister passed away, they have this kind of vitriol for his next potential life partner. That's not exactly honoring their sister's memory, that's for sure. Violent criminal psychos. You are not the asshole, OP, and I'm sorry about that horrific shitshow and the personal attacks." User Reflection Suite said, "You are not the asshole. I understand why he keeps in touch with them and views them as family, but if my family treated a partner this way, I'd go no contact until they could treat us both with respect. He may be dealing with some guilt about moving on, but if you can work through your hangups regarding this, so can he. Update. Just a mini update to clear some things up before I have a discussion with my fiance either later today or tomorrow about my ultimatum. I didn't sleep at all yesterday or the night before for obvious reasons. There's a ding on my phone at least once an hour from them saying one thing or another, mainly from the 19-year-old, and I don't know what they've told people, but I've received a message from one of their uncles and grandparents calling me horrible names too. So obviously they've been spreading what's happened this week and twisting it. I haven't blocked them because I want to gather as much evidence as I can for the inevitable case. Regardless of any outcome with my fiance, I will be suing and filing a criminal case for harassment and vandalism, and I'm looking for a restraining order. I just haven't had the mental fortitude to do so yet. I'm hoping my fiance will help me. I haven't spoken to my fiance since the argument at the table other than to tell him that they go or I do. It was my choice to give him a couple of days space to come to terms with everything, and I will contact him when I'm ready. All of this from the first message until now has been a week. It's a huge weight to contemplate leaving people you've known for 15 years and who you grew up with. He did set hard boundaries with the sister from the coffee shop, as I've seen the messages. He said, paraphrasing, "You have no right talking to OP at all if this is how you're going to behave. She doesn't deserve this and you've gone too far. Why are you being like this?" She responded with more name calling and back and forth. He ended by saying not to message me again and to make sure everyone else does the same. I was happy with that. At this point, only one person in that family had an issue, to my knowledge, so it was silly to have him cut all of them off. It may not be enough for some, but it was enough for me to feel safe and comfortable. For those saying he needs therapy and counseling, he's already getting it. He's been receiving it since before we even started dating after an incident at work. I don't know about any of their family members though. The first time I had a conversation with any of them was that night. Some people are wondering what his late wife died of. It was a botched weight loss surgery where she died of sepsis. People were wondering if he was somehow the reason behind the surgery, hence the family's insane reaction, but he was not in the slightest. He likes bigger women and wouldn't pressure her into something like that. Speaking from experience. I also want to clear up why I didn't call the police about the car incident. It was entirely my idea not to file charges in exchange for a face-to-face apology and damage payment. He only wanted me to wait so that he could talk to her to see if she regretted it and then have her father pay for the damages. At the time, we thought it was just the 19-year-old who smashed up my car, not both daughters. Neither of us wanted to ruin her life. When I found out it was both of them, it was full steam ahead. Thank you all for your messages, and hopefully I'll have a positive update for you tomorrow. Edit. I chose for him to take this space apart. It's not him being indecisive. I said to take time and that I'd reach out so that his decision is thought out. It's for me. I don't want to be chosen only to be 3 kids down the line and stuck in a resentment-filled marriage. It's for me. Please understand that. Update 2. Well, what a wild morning I've had. My fiance came over bright and early this morning, and I've never been so damn tired. You may want to take a seat because this will be long. Sorry in advance. First of all, I want to set the record straight here. A lot of people are coming for my fiance over not cutting them off from the get-go, which I don't think is fair. He's a very mild-mannered, calm, and calculating person, and that's who I always knew he was. Nothing has changed. If he had been Rocky Balboa and flipped the cafe table, shouting obscenities, he would not have been the man I fell in love with. He did exactly what I expected him to do and exactly what I was comfortable with. You may be attracted to other things in men and expect other things, and that's awesome, but not me. I texted him saying I thought it was time to discuss this, and he was back at my home not a half hour later. He'd been staying with a friend the couple of nights we had no contact. We sat on our bed to talk because my back is sore from all the packing and I wasn't going to force myself to sit at the table. Before we even got to talking, he asked if we could cuddle for a minute. It definitely took some of the weight off and we were able to talk like a couple and not awkward strangers because regardless of some people's beliefs, we do love each other and it took me a very long time to feel confident in that fact. Before anyone calls me a doormat again, no, I was still sure I would stick to my ultimatum. The first thing I asked was if he felt he had enough time to make his decision, and he said he didn't need time. He was very shocked and bewildered at how so much could change in just a week, and how everything he knew was shaken up so much that he couldn't think and went numb. He did apologize that he didn't take a more defensive stance at the cafe and he doesn't want to make excuses for it. An explanation was that he genuinely didn't expect such a vitriolic response. He hid the engagement because he knew they weren't over his late wife's death and would be upset at the news. It wasn't like I would feel upset by them not knowing, which I wasn't really. He's known these girls since before they were in double digits and he would never have thought them capable of it. It came so far out of left field that he froze. I asked him if there was any possibility that either of them had a thing for him and he looked very confused and disturbed. I said how I've had people tell me it's not uncommon for siblings to do this after a loss and he thought about it. Turns out you were right. He said the 24-year-old about 8 months after his late wife's death made a move and tried to kiss him. He immediately left and told her mother about it. She was a minor at the time and messaged him saying she would be 18 soon, so it wasn't a big deal. Her mother made her see the school counselor and didn't allow her to be alone with him for a while. It was years ago, so he'd forgotten it even happened. He said he was sure that wasn't the case now because it had been so long, but I'm not so convinced. Not that it matters anymore. He opened up his Facebook and gave it to me to read. The 24-year-old had been messaging him, which he ignored. She ranged from telling him off to crying and saying how betrayed the family was to trying to manipulate him against me. He said he was sure that he needed to put them behind him and had been thinking about it on and off since he proposed, but couldn't bring himself to do it. After this week, the fire was lit and he knew what he had to do. It was all just abstract until suddenly it was very real. He asked me how I've been coping and I told him. I felt like I'd done everything right, but somehow things turned out worse than if I'd been the jealous type and stopped their contact at the beginning. I tried to be understanding and put in so much effort to be secure in myself and our relationship only for everything I worked on to be thrown in my face like I was a mistress who was cheating with him. He didn't blink the entire time and just listened. He said he should have been more observant and realized I was struggling with this so that he could help me, but I've always been the strong one. So he neglected to, and he'll do better. As I've said in a few comments now, his parents had him in their late 40s and are retired. He hates to involve them in negativity, but I was stunned when he said he's been talking to them about this since the first Facebook message. They were very understanding, but his father took a tough love approach. He said the best quote I think I've ever heard, "Get your act together before the jig is up." They offered to come stay for a while and help us move. I don't think that's necessary, but I really appreciated the thought. On the subject of moving, I made it clear that I would not be living in this house any longer than I had to, and he completely agreed. His parents offered to find us a place in their state if we wanted to have more of a support network, and I'm honestly considering it after all this. They're only a state away from my own family, so we'd be a lot better off. His job is remote, and I should be able to find work there easily enough. I've been in contact with a friend who's a mechanic, and they've quoted me between $1 to $2K for the damages, but that's an at-cost estimate as a discount. A few people have said to get a real statement and to shop around. The real cost is between $4 to $5K, and that's just for the noticeable damage. My friend thinks they've done something to the engine, so thank God I couldn't drive it anywhere. He thinks I may be entitled to a replacement car altogether. If so, I will be sure to sue for it, and that's not going to be cheap. After all the emotional things were discussed, he mentioned when I would be comfortable enough to go to the police. I made it clear he was okay with that or I'd go on my own. He said with the surest tone I've ever heard from him that this is what needed to be done, and he wasn't going to let them continue. He'd done enough to try and shield them, but he wasn't going to let it come at my expense. I'm currently in the bath frothing in bath bombs, but will be going to the station as soon as I'm done. He's downstairs right now printing out the new quotes from the mechanics and the messages the 24-year-old sent him over the past couple of days so we can go prepared. People have said that nothing will come of it, and you may be right, but I have to try, hoping my local police don't have anything better to do. It's a small town. To finish, I made a point of asking again if he would cut them off or I had to go. He didn't miss a beat and said that they're no longer going to be a part of his life, even if I decided to leave. He did ask for one last meeting to say goodbye to their parents and to put a close on that part of his life, and to explain to the girls that this is not my fault, but his decision after seeing how cruel they were capable of being. After that, we would block them on everything and move forward. I was completely fine with that. So there we have it. Writing all this out and being able to talk to people about everything has been both helpful and a good distraction from the dumpster fire that was my life, and everything worked out as well as I could have hoped. We'll see how his meeting goes with them. I'm sure they won't be very happy about it, but that's not my problem. Update 3. So it seems I've been naughty because I got temporarily banned on here for 3 days. In chat, someone was calling me every derogatory and sexist term imaginable, but I was put in timeout for defending myself. I appealed, but the appeal took the ban time anyway. Oh well, sorry this update is taking so long for the reasons stated above. So we drove down to the police station with our block of paperwork and had a couple of hours of talk. They were so sweet about everything. As some of you expected, they did say I should have come earlier, but they didn't really care because it was only a few days. They said that it often takes people about this amount of time to actually file charges if they weren't in immediate threat or danger. I handed them everything and it looks like I've got plenty of evidence. They'll be contacting my insurance on my behalf to get the ball rolling and so they can come to check my car themselves. Then they can open a claim with me if I want. I've filed criminal charges for harassment and vandalism, and they'll notify me with more details about my restraining order this week. My fiancé told the police that he was planning on meeting with his late wife's family and asked if that would contradict my case, and they said no. We're not married at the time of filing, so legally we're two separate entities in the case or something. So my car is totaled. My mechanic friend, I'm going to call him Tom because I can't keep saying my mechanic friend, and his partner at the shop did a full check on my car, and this is the damage they found. Shattered windshield, 4 slashed tires, 2 broken windows, paint, unknown substance in the engine oil, and a battered bodywork. They said with this amount of damage, I should just go for a new car. So that's what I'll be doing. If anyone is curious, it was a Volvo. I'd always wanted one and managed to buy one new 2 years ago. Either they get me a new car if they'd be set back about $60K. Either way, I'll be alright. The amount classifies the vandalism as a felony, so they could be looking at jail time too. My fiancé met with the family on Saturday and Tom sat by the window. I currently live in a one-party state, so as long as my fiancé consents, the recording can be used in my case. While it may not be as drama-filled as some of you may want, it was still pretty stressful to see. They met at the same cafe that we did before, and Tom sat a few tables away. My fiancé arrived after their father and before them, which was for the best because they managed to have a calm conversation for once. My fiancé told him how he was feeling, and his father-in-law was very understanding, but still trying to minimize things. He was saying things like, you know they miss his late wife, and they'll come around, they just need time to come to terms with you moving on. He kept trying to initiate paying for the damages, but my fiancé wouldn't talk about it until the sisters arrived. It was like butter wouldn't melt with the 24-year-old, but the 19-year-old came in like the Tasmanian devil. My fiancé didn't acknowledge anyone until it had all settled down, at which point he said this would be his last meeting with all of them and they'd be going their separate ways. He turned to the girls and said that he would miss who he thought they were, but the way they could treat people horrified him, especially me. He said that this was all him and they needed to accept that I was not to blame. He even said that it was me who offered the apology in exchange for not filing charges. The 19-year-old then interrupted, asking what charges were and that no one was going to charge them for barely touching a car. She was a deer in headlights when he asked what they'd done to the engine oil, and the two looked at each other. It seems they didn't expect me to find that out. Cue up the groveling. The 24-year-old actually tried to touch his hand and told him he had to stop me from pressing charges because this would ruin her and interfere with the 19-year-old's college. He said it was too late and the cops should be issuing a warrant soon. This is when their dad got involved again and said for everyone to calm down and fix this like adults. Now he wants his girls to be adults. I see. He asked if my fiance would convince me to drop the charges in exchange for that apology and he'd pay the damages. When my fiance said it was $60K, the eyes he gave to those women would shave the hair off a cat. The video wasn't the best, but I swear I could see the color drain from their faces. I may sound awful, but I enjoyed it. Call me what you will. They kept going on about apologizing and that they'd pay, but he just said it was too late and he was done. He'd tried to be civil, but they were the ones that wouldn't let it go. The 24-year-old actually asked him to set up a meeting with me so they could get to know me and put it all behind us. He didn't reply, and after the silence, they piped up again like, "So she won't even meet us? So she's behind all this because she doesn't want us around. We'll see about that." Things like that. They went on, and frankly, it was funny more than hurtful. But they did incriminate themselves more and more for my harassment case, and the nail in the coffin was when the 19-year-old said, "If we can do that to a car, imagine what else we could do." That, my friends, is both a confession and a threat of bodily harm. My fiance said one loud "stop" before wishing his father-in-law well and telling the girls not to come near me. He then got up and left. That's where the recording ends because we wouldn't be able to use anything afterward anyway. As for moving, we're pretty much all packed up and have a truck coming on Friday. We'll be staying with his parents until we find a place. We're looking at buying this time, but might get an RV in the meantime, so we're not all stepping on each other. I doubt his parents would mind at all. This is the last update for a while, I think. I have a wedding to finish, a venue to change, new invites, etc., and less than 2 months to do it. Send help, but thank you all for being ears and helping me get through this, if only to distract me from ruminating and digging a huge mental hole. Final update. So it's been a while, guys. Calling the past few months a roller coaster wouldn't quite do it justice. A lot has happened, and I hope I don't leave anything out. Here goes. First off, we've moved away. We're only a couple of towns over from my husband's parents, and my own are in the next state over. Hallelujah. It's been really great living in our new RV, and we've been able to take small trips now and then too, which has been great for a breather. It took a chunk out of our house savings, but we're not too worried about it. Looking for a house has been fun too. I can't speak to what might have happened, but by a stroke of luck, the warrants came through the day before our moving day, and the sisters spent the whole move in police custody. I'm sure it was not as formal as cuffs and interview rooms, but I like to imagine it that way. So we didn't have to deal with any drama that would have certainly happened otherwise. As I said before, we didn't block them because we wanted to keep the line open for more evidence, and boy was that a good idea. The 19-year-old has only now stopped sending me messages. It started off with pleading and hoping for a meetup, then went on to calling me names for trying to ruin her life. But the past few weeks have been pure rage, which has been draining if entertaining. She says she'll find me and I'd better watch my back. My printer has been working overtime, as you can imagine. So many receipts to give my lawyer. The 24-year-old is still working on my husband, but it reached a head a few days before the wedding. We should have changed the dates, but it just wasn't feasible. We had family from all over who had taken time off work, and we really wanted everyone there after all that happened. She tried to call my husband over a dozen times and actually left 2 voicemails. She was crying and hyperventilating, saying how she didn't want to lose him. For those of you who said she still had a thing for him, ding dong. My husband listened to the voicemails with me, and she just rambled. It was actually quite sad. She said that she always thought they would be together because they've been through so much together and it felt right. She blamed him for leading her on and making her fall for him only to choose someone else that he hardly knew. She even said she felt replaced, which made me uncomfortable. All of this while degrading him for betraying his late wife by moving on at all. I genuinely do not understand her logic. As for my car, we found out what the unknown substance was. It was antifreeze. The entire engine was written off, and with everything else, my insurance launched a case against them for the cost of a new car. I was expecting around a $60K or so, but Tom, my mechanic friend, said to ask for more based on current market value and such. They came back with a new offer of $75K. It took over a month for the money to hit my account, but I got it. As for the case, I'm no longer going after them for repayment. My insurance is, so that's one less thing I have to worry about. As far as I know, their father is paying for their legal fees, but I doubt he'll pay back the insurance company for them. There is still a case against them for harassment and threatening behavior, and I'm suing for the money it took to move away and for emotional distress. My lawyer says they'll be liable, and it's looking like they want to settle. I don't feel great about going for emotional distress, but after everything they have done, it sure was emotionally distressing. The courts are moving slowly, so I don't have anything new on the criminal case yet, other than that they are going to plead guilty. It shouldn't be long now, and it's looking like they're getting probation and mandatory anger management. Not a stint in jail, but oh well. At least they'll both have a record. My husband was down for a while since we left, but he hasn't wavered in supporting me. He's getting back to his old self now that he's settling in at work here, and he's enjoying being closer to his parents. It's been great for our relationship too because we all get on so well. As of the 21st, I'm a married woman. It was very hectic and stressful to change basically our entire wedding in 2 months, but we did it, and our guests were so understanding. We had to settle for a few things like our cake and catering, but everything else worked out amazingly. Now, we couldn't imagine it any other way. It happened as it was supposed to. All in all, things are going well, and thanks to everyone who got invested. It's been a tough journey, and I'm just glad to have them out of my life. A deleted user said, "Holy shit, I just read all your posts and just wow, here are my comments on them freaking out because he was getting married again and how could he betray them and his late wife? Like what? The guy is 20-9. Did they honestly think he was just going to be a widower for the rest of his life? Again, 29 years old." And the 24-year-old saying, "How could you be with someone you barely know?" Again, what? How does this chick think relationships work? Usually, you meet someone you barely know and then get to know them. I don't think she understands how relationships work, and I'm thinking she's never been in one. On blaming you, again, what? Blaming you for what? Having a relationship with someone who happens to have a late wife. Blaming you for him loving you, and finally, blaming you for him cutting contact. You did that to yourselves, chickies. On the destruction of your car. Why are they so dumb? Why in the name of their late sister would they do something like that in this day and age when there are cameras literally everywhere? And again, why did they need to do that? Because their ex-brother-in-law is getting remarried? Have you people not heard of a normal life and that's how people do life? I would not have even considered meeting with them to see if they would pay. I would have called the cops right away to come to my house and see what they did, knowing that there was no way they would own up to it or arrange payment. If they were willing to take it that far, they need to be hearing from the cops, my lawyer, and the insurance company. On the 19-year-old still sending you threatening messages after they knew they were going to be prosecuted, like, seriously, is this real life? Did these girls honestly think they should keep going? Why are they so dumb? On the 24-year-old still trying to get with your husband and leaving him psychotic voicemails. I can't even anymore. I literally want to bang my head against a wall right now. Just, why? Have they always had such a gross lack of common sense and intelligence? On their dad trying to minimize, I got to hand it to him for sticking by his kids' sides, but really, dude, don't defend them. They are clearly lacking sanity at this point. You should probably have them committed. On your husband saying anything was his fault. No, he did nothing wrong and should not be blamed or take the blame for anything. On whoever the dick was that was harassing you through Reddit, they are clearly a very stupid human. It was probably one of them or one of their flying monkeys who will now get that they had smoke blown up their ass once those girls plead guilty. Morons. I get that they have underdeveloped brains and lack the ability to fully grasp consequences, but for sake, those bitches deserve everything they get from this because they around and found out. The stupidity is searing my brain right now. I'm so glad you moved away and had your wedding so that you and your husband can put this behind you. And yes, you should absolutely continue suing them for emotional distress. Those cunts harassed and threatened you multiple times. Just total and complete morons. Their parents should be ashamed that they raised two little psycho bitches. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.